Pursuit of Truth. This is your host, Sir Patrick Mack, a.k.a. Perseus Maximus, a.k.a. the Pied Piper of Pursuitude. You see what you're looking at right there on your screen, Patriot? That is a Q post, and there's more where that came from. Yep, there's more where that came from, and I'm trying to get to them right now. All right, I don't have time to play. I don't have time to wait while you make your coffee and you go look for your slippers. All right? Hang on, let me grab a slice of coffee cake. All right, no, it's time to get it done. You need to think of that stuff before you even hit play, because we mean business around here on In Pursuit of Truth. Get your kids out of the room. Maybe get them in the room. Get them in the room. Hey, Junior, sit down, knucklehead. Maybe you'll freaking learn something. Homeschooling with Mystic Mac. Maybe that'll be a thing. Yeah, maybe that'll be a thing. 3964, 47 minutes after the hour at 12. We get a Fox News link, and Q says, be informed. Boris, think for yourself, trust yourself. Well, as many of you already know, Boris Johnson over there had a bit of a bout with the Rona, and it was looking pretty dark indeed. But he's coming out. He's seeing the light at the end of a tunnel. It is hard to find the words to express my debt to the NHS for saving my life. The efforts of millions of people across this country to stay at home are worth it. Together, we will overcome this challenge as we have overcome so many challenges in the past. And he makes a little video here. This is just a screenshot, but he was thanking his medical staff and the nurses, and in particular, these two nurses that watched over him during this 48-hour period, where it was evidently a bit dark, a little bit dicey, a little bit sketchy. We weren't really sure what was going to happen. Did he even have the Rona in the first place? Well, it's hard to really know, but Dr. Oz was on Fox talking about hydroxychloroquine, which in Spanish is hidroxicloroquinones. Check it out.
Well, let's bring in Dr. Mehmet Oz, because if you want to really stand up this country again, we got to get a therapy, and we got to get a vaccine. And we thought of you right away, Dr. Oz, when it seems South Dakota is going hydroxychloroquine crazy and doing their own trial. New York's using it, but they don't seem to be writing down their results. What is South Dakota doing?
I want to applaud Governor Noem. They teamed up with Stanford Healthcare, which is the largest rural healthcare provider in the country. I've known them for quite a while. I actually was in contact with them this morning just to make sure I got the details right. And here's what the plan is. They're going to do two things. A registry, which would allow them to collect data on all the patients that get treated who are COVID-19 positive. So you come in, you're infected, if you're high risk, or there's another reason that they think you should be treated, they're going to give you the medication. They have up to 100,000 people worth of doses, so they'll treat a lot of folks if they need to and collect data. Equally importantly, they're going to do a prophylactic randomized trial, which means they're going to very precisely take people who are healthcare workers who are clearly exposed, or high-risk people who are exposed, like over the age of 80, over the age of 45 with a comorbidity, or younger than 45 but two comorbidities. Please remember those criteria, because they're important. That's how South Dakota is defining high risk. That might be how other states define high risk when it comes to who gets to go out and go back to work and who maybe should wait at home for a little while, because it's those high-risk groups that become the majority of the hospitalized patients, the majority of the ICU patients, and ultimately the majority of people who die. So I applaud these guys for doing it. By the way, on my show today, I have the University of Minnesota researchers doing something very similar. A couple thousand patients looking at both prevention in one arm, but treatment in the other arm. And as you know, I spoke to Didier Raoult, the famous French infectious disease specialist. I'm almost going to air that interview today. He's very clear on a couple of things. First, he says hydroxychloroquine in his hands at his institute in Marseille is safe. He met with the French President Macron for 3.5 hours last week to summarize his data, and he'll go through it in details. But fundamentally, he says that 96% of people, there is no virus left at the end of 10 days. And the 4% where there's measured virus in the nose, when they try to actually culture the virus, it doesn't grow. So it means that his patients are becoming less infectious. Now, it's not randomized, but those are just basic observations about his patients. If we could emulate that elsewhere, it would, I think, help us deal with this virus more effectively if it pans out in the South Dakota trial, in the University of Minnesota trial.
Okay, so I think at this point we all understand that there's a little bit of scare tactics being used by the mainstream media that goes along with not only coronavirus, but hidroxychloroquinones. So does the World Health Organization have the cojones to endorse the chloroquinones? Well, it remains to be seen. But we know that President Trump is talking about taking away their funding. And of course, that sent them into a panic. Not just them, but Bill Gates himself, who comes out saying, oh, I would caution against that. That could be a very dangerous move. Well. Oddly enough, China came out complaining about the same thing, expressing their dismay at this idea of taking away the World Health Organization's funds. So where are they going to get their funds? Well, I did a short little thread on this the other day, and I will leave this down below for you because I don't want to go deep into it. I want to cover the Q post, but I do want to make sure you know where to find it. If you're on YouTube, it will be linked down below. It is also linked on my Patreon, and no, you do not have to be a patron of my channel to go look at those. Those are all free on my Patreon, all of my threads. You can go see this. But I spotted this the other day. As you can see, the World Health Organization has gotten together with this hashtag Play a Part Together. Where is Scarlet Ace? And they're also involved with this Zynga Poker. What's the world's largest poker game doing with the World Health Organization? And I know, there's probably other bigger poker games, but they advertise themselves as the world's largest. So take it up with them. Well, I'd really love for you to go check it out for yourself. But as you can see here, they have partnered up with Play a Part Together, which is run by Facebook. So already we're starting to get a little bit sketchy here. And it's this gaming thing where all these people stay home and they game, and then they essentially raise money through the gaming and through all this instant messaging and stuff like that to support the World Health Organization and raise funds. It's essentially a video gaming charity while also making you very comfortable at home, right? So Facebook's involved in this, and then they've also got this whole coronavirus information center, medical center all set up. It looks like they're wanting to basically monitor you through this whole situation. And then we go into Zynga Poker's CEO, who worked on the Star Wars games and some other games like that. Some of these games have in-game comms, and that's why I thought it was really interesting to bring this guy up, because a lot of these in-game communications are the ways that these deep state players will sometimes communicate back and forth. But some of the histories of some of these people, here we go. Here's one person, Matt Bromberg, who was working on Fitbit, which of course is a tracking app, BioWare. Okay, this other person, Fung Phillips, she worked with Solar City and Tesla. So you get the idea. A lot of this looks to be some big time surveillance stuff. And these are the people that are working on this project that is coordinating with the World Health Organization. So this looks like a way for the World Health Organization to get some coin now that they're probably not going to be getting it. And of course, it always sounds like a good cause when you're sitting there gaming, right? That's the whole idea. So do me a favor, please check out this thread because there's a little bit to it. And I have a feeling there's probably a lot more. But it looks to me like the World Health Organization is looking for coin. So no more new cash for the World Health Organization. They're going to have to drum up other ways until we launch this investigation into why they were helping China cover up the numbers and the information in regard to the corona. Q says, be informed, Boris. Think for yourself. Trust yourself. So I can't help but wonder if Boris needed to go away from the public eye for a couple of days, maybe for his own safety. It's hard to really know. Maybe he indeed had the Rona. But I want to point out that Q posts here, be informed, Boris. There's two B's right there, and then there's two T's. B-B-T-T. Are we talking about Bill Barr? Are we talking about the Trump Tower? Are we talking about tarmac tapes? Well, I wouldn't be surprised if we're talking about Trump Tower. Keep in mind, Bill Barr was recently in Italy before all this began. He was there with Durham, and they were wanting to hear some audio depositions from Joseph Mifsud, if you remember, the Maltese professor who had claimed he was an intelligence asset hired by one John Brennan, who incidentally is conspicuously absent as of late. So is there something to the BBTT? You tell me. Let's move on. Post 3965, 48 minutes after the hour of 12, responding to an Anon who says, I am same as you, Q, having to go Tor. Are we under attack? For those of you who don't know, Tor is a browser that a lot of people use to go onto 8kun. And I kind of suggest that whether you use Tor or something else, you might want to use something if you're going on 8kun. But that's what they're referring to. And of course, Q says, always. Yeah, the attacks are pretty solid and steady as of late. I'm getting hit from every single angle, so I can only imagine that many of you are sharing some of the same stories. I think we're all getting hit hard. The shills are coming out in full force. The mainstream media is coming out in full force. It's gotten even uglier, and like I said yesterday, I have a feeling it's probably going to get a little darker before it gets light, but we're definitely moving forward, and you can feel that because the panic in some of these LARPs that are getting on, at least on my channel, seem to be even more and more unhinged. Let's Let's move on. Post 3966, 59 minutes after the hour 12. Q's responding to an Anon who says, you have to sense the tension building, Q. It's becoming a tinderbox. Q says, imagine if we weren't here. While difficult, it's important to understand this must be done by the book. Yeah, I hear it all the time. Why don't we just go in and arrest everybody? Okay, great. And then we're going to find out that the district attorney is suspect. And then we find out that the judge is paid off. And we've seen this time and time again. If you haven't seen this pattern at this point, you probably just don't understand it. Average people must be able to digest and accept, factually in brackets, events. Yeah, indeed. They have to be able to see how corrupt a group like the World Health Organization really is. And when they understand that, when they understand that lives were at stake, this is no longer about politics, right? This isn't about Russian collusion. This isn't about Ukrainian FISA abuse. This isn't about the Five Eyes. This is about lives. And when people start to really understand that and understand the insidious nature of the World Health Organization and what Bill Gates and his kind of contribution to this whole thing really entails, people will wake up, and they are waking up. I'm seeing it every day, and I imagine many of you are too. FISA was the lead-in, stage 1, act 1. And Q said this a while ago. You're essentially watching a movie, and FISA is the beginning. FISA was their cover-up to their misdeeds. So once we expose the FISA, then you can start to see what the misdeeds they were covering up was. Bad actors had to be removed. Good actors had to be installed. Sleepers had to be uncovered. And I'm sure we're still going to see some more sleepers popping up out of the woodwork. We are ready. Think bar public. Well, he went pretty public the other day, right? He was saying that this whole corona thing was almost a jihad of some sorts. It's almost like he was implying something more sinister, right? I think you understand how this works. We've got to do this right because we've only got one chance. Now, if you're having a hard time with the timing of it all, that's fine. That is perfectly your right. However, attacking me about it ain't gonna help you none. Get something done in your own local community. You'll feel a lot better about things. And I'm off my soapbox. Let's go. Post 3967, 6 minutes after the hour 1. Q's responding to an Anon who posts this flag with a cool little cross shining through it, the American flag. Just like Q and Q+, put on that armor of God, patriots. Keep praying. In the end, God wins. Where we go one, we go all. All right, well, for those of you of faith, that's always pretty good advice, right? Q says these people are pure evil. This is not about politics. You are ready. Indeed, this is not about politics. This is about lives. It was just what I was saying. This whole corona scam is really putting a lot of people under some serious pressure, financial pressure, and of course lives are actually being lost. Liberties are being lost. So this is go time. It's essentially go time. And this is really way beyond any kind of impeachment procedures or FISA abuse or just trying to get rid of President Trump because you don't like his policies. We know what's up. This is about human trafficking. This is about politics. This is about mass surveillance. This is about world freedom. This is about our chance to finally do something about this. And we may not like the timeline, but the only thing we can really do that's going to make us feel better is getting involved, because after all, these people are pure evil. And I myself don't want to watch this go by and remember that I did nothing. Simple as that. This is not about politics. Q says you are ready. And Q said that before, and I believe the last time Q said that, we got ourselves a bout of the Rona. So take that for what you will. Let's move on. Post 3968, 14 minutes after the hour of 1. Q responds to an Anon who says, I suspect there are still a ton of sleepers regarding Paul Ryan, etc., etc. Do you think it was Paul Ryan's choice to step down? Asked Q. No, remember, this guy was Speaker of the House. This guy was fairly young. And of course, he had a big political career ahead of him. So why would he step down just all of a sudden to be with family, like he said? Rising star in the Republican Party. Yeah, he was poised to be running for president at some point. Speaker of the House, age. So I think you get the idea. This guy was nowhere near ready to retire. All of a sudden, he just decides to go ahead and step down. And remember, he was part of the Gang of 8. So they would have been getting all this intel saying that this Russian information was indeed bunk. As a matter of fact, it was his own chief of staff, John Birx, that was getting a lot of that information. So it was pretty clear to see that Paul Ryan stepping down was a big deal. Now, I can't help but think he was probably taking some money from some drug lords in regard to the human trafficking situation down there in Arizona, which leads us to Senator Jeff Flake, who's from Arizona, and along with John McCain, no-name John McCain, were probably aiding in a lot of drug and gun running down there at the border, not to mention human trafficking, which is a massive problem on the border of Mexico there. And then we see these dots again. Looks like 11 dots to me. Not really sure what that means. I previously had thought that we were talking about putting in evidence. How do you legally inject evidence? But I'm not so sure I'm correct on that. I'm going to let you guys try and decipher that, or at least hear some of your theories on that. But it looks like there are going to be some more sleepers, and I wouldn't be surprised if Paul Ryan starts running his mouth on Fox really, really soon. Post 3969, 28 minutes after the hour of 1, Q is responding to another Anon who posts these graphics side by side. The one on the left might be a bit small for you. It's post 3784 from January 23rd, 2020. And we were talking about the chain of command, D-class chain of command, POTUS, bar, Durham. And that's exactly what we're seeing now on the right. This is from the Gateway Pundit. Huge via John Solomon. Durham has subpoenaed and called in witnesses before a grand jury, which we already knew, and we knew that was coming. Now, keep in mind, there's been a lot of talk about some sort of report coming from Durham. I'm not so sure that that's going to be the case. It could just simply be these grand juries. It could be prosecutions, and then there may be a report that results from that, but I'm not so sure that we're going to see like a Horowitz report or something like that. I don't think that that's going to be the case. And this Anon says, Q, see what they did there? The Durham call for witness. And Q says, we are far beyond the need for proofs. You have more than you know. Durham start. Qmap start. Q is referring to the fact that Durham was appointed at the same time that the Q operation started, and this is directly suggesting that the two are involved. 5-5 meaning loud and clear. Yeah, I think we got it, and honestly, it's fun to see Q proofs, but honestly, I don't need them at this point. I think what we all really want to see is something moving forward, and if we can see anything moving forward, it would really be nice to see some of these grand juries get moving. I think that's going to be the real case. And Q says here in 3784, slow drip, flood. So once we get this slow drip coming out through the grand jury material, hopefully that will lead to some prosecutions. But that's a lot further than any kind of report would ever be. So I would say that this is probably some of the most encouraging news going around. Let's move on. Post 3970, 32 minutes after the hour 1, again responding to an Anon. When will our voice and vote matter again, Q? Q says it does now, Patriot, more than ever. Think 2016, think 2020. Think of the world awakening. Yeah, for sure. We've got to show up at polls. We've got to be active. I think people are already starting to get a little bit active. I just heard about these protests in Michigan. People are starting to protest the lockdowns and things like that. Look, I don't think there's anything wrong with being active, and activism in its true sense, I think, can be really, really important. It's the only way we're going to be able to help speed things along. The Q team has their agenda and they have their timeline, and there's not much we can do about that other than sit back and watch. But if sitting back and watching makes you feel helpless, I would encourage people to act. And I can't say that enough. I really can't. And in my own little way, doing this channel was my humble way of doing just that. And that's why I don't really tolerate a lot of people that are yelling about why things aren't happening, because usually they're the very people that aren't doing anything. This is a world awakening. People are hitting the streets. People are getting active. People are signing petitions. People are starting channels. People are doing podcasts. We're doing all kinds of things. There are a million things that can be done, and if there's not anything that really particularly stands out to you, maybe you can help somebody else, but there's always something that can be done in this process, and we really need each other at this point. And I think President Trump needs us. I think the Q team needs us, but the fact of the matter is that we need each other. That's more important than anything. Boy, I'm really soapboxing it today, aren't I? You like that? Cheesing it hard. Let's move on before I cheese it too hard. Post 3971, 34 minutes after the hour 1. And frogs to destroy them. Well, if I didn't know any better, that sounds kind of biblical. From Exodus 8 verses 4, the frogs will come upon you and your people and all your officials. One of the major plagues, right? Well, back then they probably just thought we were talking about regular old frogs. Maybe we're talking about a different kind of frog, right? Pepe the Frog, representative of Kekistan, and Q Anonymous everywhere. That's you and me, Patriot. That's you and me. Well, what an incredible irony if that turned out to be true. Now, look, I don't make any predictions, and I most certainly don't get into prophecies very much, but I do want to share with you a little bit from Pastor Clement, and this was from his video a while back. Part 2 of the Empires of the Future are the Empires of the Mind. Check out what he had to say.
I'm standing in this whole thing, petrified, paralyzed. I cannot move. And I'm begging in my spirit saying, in my heart saying, please, I want out of this, God. What's going on? Now, don't laugh, please. And I constantly heard the sound of a frog croaking. I'm serious. And over, it sounded like it was a dangerous, large frog. Unfortunately, I had no further understanding of this. Most of you are now accusing me of pizza. But there's something about this noise that I heard.
So there you have it, Patriot. Are you the frog? Am I the frog? Are we frogs? Are you feeling froggy? Well, I don't know, but either way, I am set out to destroy some deep state knuckleheads, and I'm sure you are too. Those are your Q posts for now. As always, if you like this video, please click like, share, and subscribe. Thanks to all of you who do that already. My links are down below if you're watching me on YouTube. I highly suggest joining me on one of my other platforms in case my YouTube goes down. Q has warned that it may happen, so please don't be surprised if it does. They're all linked down below, and the thread that I linked you to earlier will also be down below, or you can find it on Patreon, which is linked down below in the video description as well. It's all down below, as well as my email if you've got some information for me. If you want to send me something old school, my P.O. box is down below, and my Patreon, of course, is there if you want to support the channel. It's all down below, and until next time, this is Sir Patrick Mack. Stay funky!